Welcome back, Dilly Doers, for another episode.
This week's episode is sponsored by Kraft Mac and Cheese. We like Kraft Mac and Cheese as much as you like to listen to us.
Today, we're going to be talking all about the role that women and African Americans played in the Civil War.
Later on, we are going to have Civil War expert Madison Poole joining us to add some info on the topic.
Let's get into it. So first, here's some background on the Civil War. The Civil War was a battle that took place in the United States from 1861 to 1865.
The two sides were the North and the South, or the Union and the Confederacy. They were fighting because of their different views on slavery.
The South was in favor of slavery and the North was against it. This caused division in the country, resulting in the two sides.
As the war progressed, women played an important role during the war. Here to talk about it with us is Civil War expert Madison Poole. Welcome, Madison.
Thanks for having me.
So what can you tell us about the role that women played in the Civil War?
Well, to start, when their husbands went off to fight, they were left to provide for their families, so they had to run their husbands' farms and businesses. And they also went to work on factories or be nurses, teachers, and even government workers.
So the women really kept the industrial side of the country afloat while the men were fighting in the war.
They definitely stepped up while the men were away.
Can you tell us about women soldiers?
Yeah, some women did actually take part in battle by dressing up as men.
Wow, so I guess you could say they pulled a Mulan.
Mr. I'll make a man out of you.
Anyways, what did these women soldiers do?
Well, some fought and some of them acted as spies by doing things like carrying messages in their hoop skirts, corsets, and parasols.
Can you tell us some things about the women's roles as nurses?
They did more than you might think. They cared for the injured and they passed out supplies, wrote letters for soldiers, cooked and served meals, and did laundry.
Women really did influence the war. Some famous women who were involved in the war were Harriet Tubman, Belle Boyd, Rose Greenhow, Elizabeth Van Lew, Mary Frances, Mary Ann Pittman, Claire Barton, and many more.
Rose Greenhow was arrested for spying shortly after the Battle of Bull Run by smuggling military secrets to the Confederates.
Clara Barton followed Union armies into battle, taking care of the troops where they fell, as well as creating the American Red Cross.
Clara Barton was known as the Angel of the Battlefield.
Thank you so much for the info on women in the Civil War. Now, can you give us any information about African Americans in the Civil War?
African Americans were very eager to fight on the Union side because the Union was against slavery.
The African Americans were a big help to the Union side, but they still weren't treated equally. They were also paid less than the white soldiers. They were paid about $10 a week.
Isn't it true that about 18,000 black men served as soldiers?
Yes, African American soldiers made up about 10% of the total Union force.
Wow, they really cared and were a big part of the Army. I know that Lincoln became very against slavery, especially after seeing how much they were committed.
There is also the Emancipation Proclamation that said that black prisoners of war will be enslaved or executed on the spot if they were ever caught.
All in all, women and slaves both played very important roles in the Civil War and made big impacts.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Madison. We really appreciate your expertise.
Thank you, no problem. It was fun being here.
Thanks for tuning in, Diddly Doers, and join us next week for another exciting episode of Diddly Do.